My name is Natalie, and I've always believed that hard work pays off. I wasn't the loudest in the room or the one who showed off, but I loved learning. We lived in a decent house. And they always had money for my older brother Alex's sports gear, gaming consoles, and new clothes. My dad said, "That's nice, but college is expensive, we'll see." Given to Alex, I tried to stay calm, "But you told me it was for college. I've worked so hard." My mother rolled her eyes and said, "You're a girl. You'll get married soon." My friends were shopping for dorm room supplies, planning their majors, posting about orientation day on social media. He failed his first few months in business, blamed the economy, and kept asking for more money. They always found some way to help him. I started journaling, talking to my best friend Lena more often, and spending time at the bookstore across town. Owner, Mr. Ramirez, was an older man with kind eyes who noticed I was always studying in the corner. He offered me a part-time job, and soon, that bookstore became my second home. I didn't know it then, but it would become the place where everything started to change for me. But when I asked for a used laptop to do my schoolwork, my dad said, "Use the public library. You'll manage." It showed me who I was to my family, a backup plan, a support system, but never the priority. And it lit a quiet fire in me. If they didn't believe in my future, I'd build it myself, brick by brick, on my own terms. I wouldn't just survive. I'd thrive without them. That sentence stuck with me for a long time. You'll manage. That's all they ever expected from me, to survive, not succeed. And the worst part, I still loved them. I still wanted them to be proud of me. I tried to be happy for them, but every post felt like a punch to the gut. I had to remind myself daily that this wasn't the end, that just because I was starting behind didn't mean I couldn't catch up. I would go to community college for 2 years, transfer somewhere better, and make it work. I just had to survive this part. What's the point in wasting all that money when Alex is the one who'll take care of a family someday? That hurt more than I can describe. Not just the betrayal, but the way they looked at me like I was foolish for dreaming. I wasn't angry yet, just stunned. I went to my room, closed the door, and cried for hours. It felt like the future I had worked for was snatched away in an instant. My heart dropped, but I told myself not to overthink it. I just sat with my acceptance letter, running my fingers over the edges until they were soft and worn. I kept thinking, maybe they'll change their minds, maybe they'll realize how unfair this is, but nothing changed. Alex never even said thank you for the money. He just bragged about his new business, the used car lot he barely knew how to run. Meanwhile, I started looking for community colleges and scholarships I could apply for on my own. I picked up more hours at the diner where I worked after school. It was exhausting, but I had no choice. Maybe they were just surprised. Over the next few weeks, I brought it up again, asking if we could go over the fees and talk about the rest of the tuition. That's when the truth slowly started coming out. My dad sat me down and said, "Natalie, we had to make some tough decisions. We gave that money to Alex so he could start his business. He needs a strong start in life. You're smart, you'll figure something out." Still, I never complained. I figured if I worked hard and stayed focused, they'd help me when the time came for college. They always told me, "We're saving up for your future." I believed them. Every time I passed a university billboard or watched a movie about campus life, my heart would race a little. That would be me soon. I was accepted into my dream school with a partial scholarship, and I was so excited to finally tell my parents. I remember walking into the kitchen, holding the acceptance letter in my hand, practically shaking with joy. Books were my best friends, and I dreamed of being the first in my family to go to a top university. Ever since I was little, I would sit on the porch with my notebooks, scribbling away ideas and solving math problems just for fun. I used to imagine my parents cheering for me at graduation, proud that their daughter had made it. That dream stayed with me through long nights of studying, through school exams, and even during part-time jobs I picked up in high school. I truly believed I was working towards something bigger. A future I could build with my own hands. My parents weren't poor, at first. They were quiet. My mom nodded, barely looking up from her phone. At first, I thought I heard him wrong. The money they told me they were saving for my future, it was all gone. The next few days were a blur. I didn't eat much. That summer was the hardest of my life. My parents barely noticed how much I was struggling. They were too busy trying to make Alex look like the golden son. It was during that time I learned how to take care of myself emotionally. Looking back, that moment sitting on my bed with an acceptance letter I couldn't use changed the course of my life. After I accepted that my parents weren't going to help me, I told myself there was no time to waste feeling sad. I still had a future, and I was going to fight for it. I worked morning shifts at the diner, rushed to my afternoon classes, and closed up the bookstore most evenings. I would study during my bus rides and sometimes even during my lunch break. There were days I came home so tired I fell asleep with my shoes on. But strangely, I felt more alive than I ever had. I realized I had stopped waiting for my parents to notice me. I didn't need their praise or approval anymore. I had grown past it. Their silence didn't sting like it used to. My parents didn't come. They didn't even call. But I wasn't sad. Not anymore. I had made it here by myself. My best friends were there, cheering like crazy, holding up signs and flowers. Mr. Ramirez from the bookstore mailed me a handwritten letter that made me cry. It had college logos, apartment pictures, and the words independence, strength, peace. I thought I'd be supported, lifted up by my family, but sometimes life pushes you to grow in the dark. And when you do, you come out stronger, clearer, and more grounded than ever. I was no longer the girl who needed her parents to believe in her. I believed in myself now, and that was more than enough. I smiled. I wasn't done yet. There was still more to build, but I had come so far. Without help. Without handouts. Just with quiet determination and a refusal to quit. You didn't just chase your dream, he wrote. You created your own path when no one cleared one for you. If anything, it gave me more space to focus. I majored in business with a focus on marketing because that's what I had done. The orders came in faster than I expected. Within 6 months, I had to hire 2 part-time assistants. I moved to a slightly bigger apartment, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was living comfortably. I didn't have to check my account before buying groceries. I didn't have to eat instant noodles every night. I could breathe. And one of my professors encouraged me to take a risk, to start something of my own. That planted a seed in my mind. What if I didn't just get a job after graduation? What if I could build something? For the first time, I was living for myself, not waiting for anyone to give me permission. I loved organizing, designing, and creating things that help people stay motivated. It started as a side project, but slowly orders grew. Word spread. My little Etsy shop became a small business. I used social media to market my products and connected with students across the country. I didn't sleep much that year. Balancing finals and packing shipments was exhausting, but I was doing it. I was building something real. It wasn't easy, but it felt right. I enrolled in community college with what little savings I had from working at the diner and the bookstore. They didn't ask how school was going or if I needed help. The same white paint, the same mailbox, but the yard was overgrown and the windows were dirty. I found out later my parents had fallen behind on mortgage payments. They were close to losing the house. A part of me should have felt bad, but I didn't. I just felt distant. Like I was looking at someone else's past. That house didn't feel like mine anymore. My real home was the life I had built with my own hands, far from that cold kitchen table where I once begged for my future. It wasn't the Ivy League dream I had once imagined, but it was a huge step forward. I moved into a tiny shared apartment near campus with 2 roommates. It wasn't fancy. We had cracked walls, mismatched furniture, and a kitchen that always smelled like garlic, but it was mine. I had worked for it. I paid rent every month with my own money. I was finally living the college life I dreamed of. Even if it was scrappier than what I'd once pictured. They were still busy with Alex's mess. His car lot had failed badly, and he was trying to launch some kind of online gadget shop. I heard them whispering about credit card debt and asking my aunt for money. Still, they never admitted they made a mistake. It was as if they had doubled down on their choice and were determined to prove they were right to bet on Alex. Meanwhile, I was getting straight A's, earning scholarships one by one, and saving every dollar I could. It wasn't the big university campus I dreamed of, but the people there were kind. And many were also working hard just to be there. I met students like me once juggling jobs, family issues, and responsibilities most young people shouldn't have to carry. That made me feel less alone. I wasn't the only one starting from behind. My days became a strict routine. My parents didn't really check in. By my second year, I had enough credits and enough money saved to transfer to a state university. Around that time, something inside me started to shift. During my final year, I started selling handmade planners and study tools online. Graduation day came, and I stood on stage, holding my diploma, with no family cheering in the crowd. That summer, I launched my business full-time. I named it Start From Zero. One day, while walking past my old neighborhood, I saw the house I grew up in. That night, I stood in my tiny office, which was just a corner of my living room, and stared at the vision board I had made years ago. I never imagined my life would turn out this way. About a year into running my business full-time, I started to feel a shift in how people saw me. Friends who once thought I was just doing okay were now asking me for advice on starting their own thing. I was being invited to small business panels and community events. My handmade planners and productivity kits were being featured on blogs and social media. It was surreal. I had gone from packing orders on my bedroom floor to managing a small but growing team in a cozy little office downtown. Every single piece of it was built from the ground up, without a single dime from my parents. That part mattered more than I realized. I used to feel like I was always behind in life because I didn't get the same support as others. Now, I felt proud that I made it anyway. But just as my life was finally opening up, something unexpected happened. My brother Alex reached out to me. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since that awful day when I found out my college fund had gone to him. He sent me a short message on Instagram, something like, "Hey Nat, been a while. Mind if we catch up?" At first, I didn't even respond. I stared at the screen for a while, torn between curiosity and the old pain that still lingered. I remembered him shrugging when I asked why he took my money. "They said you didn't need it," he had said, as if it meant nothing. As if my dreams were less important than his car dealership idea. But after a few days, I gave in. We met at a cafe near my office, and I almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, heavier, and more tired than I remembered. He smiled awkwardly when he saw me and said, "You look good, Nat. Like, you've got your life together." I just nodded. I wasn't sure what to say to someone who once helped ruin my plans. We made small talk for a bit. And then he finally admitted why he wanted to meet. He was broke, again. His online business had failed, and he was couch surfing between friends. He said mom and dad were in bad shape too. Their mortgage was months behind. And they were close to losing the house. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. I didn't feel like gloating or rubbing in my success. Instead, I felt oddly detached, like I was watching a story unfold that no longer belonged to me. They were all stuck in the same cycle, making poor choices, ignoring red flags, and expecting someone else to save them. And now, they were looking at me like maybe I could be that person. Alex said something that stayed with me. "You always were the responsible one." Funny how that meant so little when they were making decisions that left me behind. Later that night, I got a call from my mom. It was the first time she'd called me in nearly 3 years. She didn't even say hello at first, just launched into a speech about how hard things had been, how they were trying their best, and how maybe I could help. "We're still family, Natalie," she said. almost like she was trying to convince herself. Family helps each other. I almost laughed. I wanted to ask where that energy was when I begged them not to take my college fund. Where was that love when they praised Alex for every little thing and ignored my achievements? But I didn't yell. I didn't say anything cruel. I just told her calmly that I was busy and that I hoped things worked out for them. I hung up the phone feeling a strange mix of peace and power. I wasn't being petty. I was just protecting the version of myself I had worked so hard to become. The version who didn't need validation or apologies to move forward. A few months later, I saw a listing for a house online, and not just any house. It was their house. The one I grew up in. The one where I had studied at the kitchen table and cried alone in my room when they told me the college fund was gone. It was up for foreclosure. I stared at the listing for a long time, wondering if this was some kind of full circle moment. I had the money to buy it, easily. My business was booming, I had smart investments, and I'd recently hired a financial advisor. Buying it wouldn't even dent my savings. Still, I hesitated. Did I really want to own the place that brought me so much pain? In the end, I did it. I bought it. Not out of revenge, but because I wanted to reclaim it. That house was filled with memories of being ignored, overlooked, and hurt. But now, it belonged to me. I had the keys. I had the power to decide what it meant to me now. I didn't kick my parents out or show up waving the deed in their faces. By the time I bought it, they had already left, quietly, without a word, probably too ashamed, or maybe still in denial. Either way, they were gone, and I was the one who stayed standing. I turned the house into something new, a creative studio and workspace for young women. Entrepreneurs. I renovated it, painted the walls bright white, filled it with plants and natural light, and opened the doors to people like me. Girls with big dreams but no support system. I wanted them to walk into that space and feel the opposite of what I felt growing up. Not ignored, but seen. Not limited, but empowered. People started calling me an inspiration or role model. I didn't know how to handle that at first. I was just someone who had to figure things out because no one else would. But maybe that's what made my story matter. I didn't win the lottery. I didn't have powerful connections. I just kept going. I refused to let the people who gave up on me define what I could or couldn't become. And now, the house that once felt like a symbol of rejection had become a symbol of resilience, my resilience. I didn't just build a business. I built a new version of myself, stronger, wiser, and free. After I dropped out of college because I couldn't pay the tuition, I felt lost for a long time. I didn't want to admit it to anyone, but I cried myself to sleep more nights than I could count. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Why did my parents choose my brother's business idea over my future? It felt like a deep betrayal. I tried working a few part-time jobs to get by, like waitressing and doing customer service at a call center, but nothing really paid enough to go back to school. Every time I passed by the university, I felt like a failure, but slowly. Something in me started to change. I realized I couldn't wait around for someone to fix things for me. If my parents weren't going to support me, then I had to support myself. I always loved organizing and designing, even back in high school. I used to help my classmates make planners and colorful study guides. It was something that brought me peace when everything else in my life felt messy. One day, while scrolling online, I saw a girl on social media who was selling digital planners and journals on a platform called Etsy. That's when it hit me, maybe I could try that too. I didn't need a degree to get started. I just needed a computer, time, and determination. So, I used my old laptop and downloaded some free design software. Every night after work, I watched YouTube tutorials and practiced creating templates. I had no idea what I was doing at first, but I was determined to learn. It took me weeks to build up the courage to open my online shop. I called it Bright Pages, and I remember posting my first 3 designs, not knowing if anyone would ever buy them. The first week, nothing happened. No orders. No likes. No messages. I felt discouraged, but I told myself not to give up. I kept improving my designs, learning about marketing, and trying to understand what customers liked. Then, one day, I got my first sale, a simple $4 digital download. I still remember the customer's name. I smiled so hard that day, I actually cried. It wasn't about the money. It was the feeling that someone, somewhere, found value in something I created. From there, I started building slowly. I reinvested everything I earned into better tools and branding. I created a website, opened an Instagram page, and posted every day, even when no one was watching. I took feedback seriously and kept improving. After 6 months, I was earning more from my shop than I did at my day job, so I made the scariest decision of my life. I quit. Everyone thought I was crazy. My coworkers, my neighbors, even a few distant relatives said, "You're really going to leave a steady job for some online planner thing?" But I had a vision, and for the first time, I believed in myself more than I believed in their doubts. Around that time, my parents started hearing about what I was doing through the grapevine. They never contacted me directly, but mutual relatives began dropping hints. "Your mom said she saw your business online," or "your dad was asking how much you're making now." I ignored it. I wasn't ready to talk to them. They had made their choice, and I was still healing from the way they treated me. What hurt most wasn't just the money. It was how easily they gave up on me, like my dreams were disposable. As my business grew, I started teaching workshops for other young women who wanted to start online businesses. I met so many people who had been through struggles like mine, overlooked by family, doubted by teachers, underestimated by the world. We shared stories, supported each other, and celebrated every little win. I didn't just find success. I found a community. That was something I had never really felt, not even in my own home. One day, I got invited to speak at a local business event. I was nervous, but I went anyway. I stood on that stage in front of a room full of people and told my story. I talked about losing my college fund, feeling broken, and building something from scratch. I could see some people in the audience tearing up, nodding their heads, maybe because they saw a bit of themselves in me. That night, something inside me shifted. I realized my pain had a purpose. Everything I went through wasn't just for me, it was for the people who needed to hear that they weren't alone. Later that week, I got a message from an old high school teacher. She wrote, "I'm so proud of you, Natalie. You always had it in you." I sat there reading her words over and over. Maybe I had always been capable. Maybe I just needed someone to believe in me, and when no one else did, I had to become that person for myself. I never thought success would look like this, not fancy cars or expensive clothes, but peace of mind. Knowing I'm building something honest. Knowing I didn't need to take from anyone else to get here. My brother never apologized, and my parents still hadn't reached out, but that didn't bother me as much anymore. I wasn't doing any of this to prove them wrong. I was doing it to prove myself right. Sometimes I still think about that moment in the kitchen. When my mom told me the money was gone and my dad just looked away. I remember how small I felt, but now, I imagine going back to that moment, standing beside that younger version of me and whispering, "You'll be okay. You're going to be more than okay." Because I am, and this is just the beginning. After I bought the house, my life took on a different kind of rhythm. I didn't expect it to feel peaceful, but it did. I thought walking through those rooms would bring back all the bitterness I once carried, but instead, it gave me closure. I had spent so long carrying around hurt and disappointment that I never realized how healing it could be to reclaim the very thing tied to my pain. The house wasn't just a house anymore, it was mine now, and that gave it new meaning. I wasn't the girl who was overlooked and forgotten. I was the woman who had built something on her own terms. I started to host small gatherings at my place, nothing big. Just a few close friends who had supported me along the way. One night, as we sat on the back porch under string lights I'd hung myself, my best friend Jasmine looked at me and said, "You really did it, Nat. You changed everything." I smiled, but I knew it wasn't just about the money or the house. The real change was how I saw myself. I no longer felt like someone trying to prove she belonged. I knew I did. Eric, on the other hand, had gone completely silent. I didn't hear from him at all, even after the sale of the house. I knew he was going through a rough time, but part of me still wondered if he felt even a little sorry. Not for losing the business, but for never standing up for me. He always played the role of the golden child, and I let him. But deep down, I wished he would have said something back then when our parents took everything that was meant for me and handed it to him without a second thought. Maybe I wanted him to admit that what they did was wrong. Maybe I just wanted him to see me for who I had become. One afternoon, I ran into him by accident at the grocery store. I almost didn't recognize him. He looked thinner, tired, like the stress had caught up with him. He saw me and gave a small, awkward smile. "Hey, Natalie," he said, his voice unsure. I nodded. "Hi, Eric." There was a pause between us that felt heavy. Like we both had a lot to say but didn't know where to start. "I heard you bought the house," he finally said. "Yeah," I replied simply. "I did." He looked down, then met my eyes. "I messed up with everything." I just wanted to say that. I didn't respond right away. I didn't want to say something fake or polite. I took a deep breath and said, "It's not just about your business, Eric. It's about how no one believed in me. You knew what our parents were doing, and you didn't stop them." He nodded slowly. "I know. I didn't want to lose their support, but I should have said something. I'm sorry." For the first time, I felt like he meant it. It didn't undo the past, but it helped to hear him say it. We parted ways quietly. And I didn't feel angry. I felt done, like I could finally let go of that chapter. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had built a life without them, and it was one I was proud of. Over time, people from my past started to notice. Some reached out with apologies, others with curiosity, but I didn't need validation. My work spoke for itself. Bright Pages had become more than a business, it was a movement. I was helping other women, especially those from tough backgrounds, believe in themselves and build something too. I began visiting community centers and schools to talk to young girls about entrepreneurship, confidence, and independence. I told them my story, not to get pity, but to show them that being overlooked didn't mean being incapable. I told them that sometimes the people closest to you won't see your worth, and that's okay. Because the most important person who needs to believe in you is yourself. At one of these events, a girl named Maya came up to me after I spoke. She was shy, barely made eye contact, but she said, "I want to do what you did. I want to start my own business, but no one at home takes me seriously." I looked at her and smiled. That's exactly how I started. You don't need their belief right away. Just start, one step at a time. Her eyes lit up. And I knew that moment would stay with me forever. Back at home, the house continued to change. I renovated the attic into a reading lounge, added flowers to the front yard, and painted over the dull beige walls with warm, calming colors. It felt like a new place, filled with light and energy. The house that once felt like a symbol of rejection now felt like a triumph. Eventually, my parents reached out again. This time, it was a letter, handwritten. My mom said they had moved into a small rental and were trying to rebuild. She said she regretted how things turned out and that she missed me. She didn't ask for anything, just said she hoped we could talk someday. I folded the letter and placed it in my drawer. I wasn't ready to reply. I didn't hate them, but I wasn't sure I could trust them again. Some things take time. Still, I didn't carry that sadness with me anymore. I felt light. I had done what so many said I couldn't. I had taken nothing and turned it into something beautiful. My college dream might have been taken from me, but I had created a different kind of education, a real-world one that taught me resilience, grit, and self-worth. And more importantly, I had turned my story into a path for others to follow. As I stood on my front porch one evening, looking out over the neighborhood, I felt calm. Everything I had gone through, all the hurt, betrayal, and loneliness, it had led me here. Not just to a house, but to a place of peace. I had come full circle, not with revenge, but with quiet success. And that, I realized, was the sweetest ending of all. It had been a few months since I received that letter from my parents. I still hadn't responded, and part of me wondered if I ever would. Not because I was holding a grudge, but because I didn't know what I would even say. What do you say to people who gave up on you so easily? Who believed your dreams were less important than someone else's? I wasn't angry anymore, but the hurt hadn't fully disappeared. I was learning that healing wasn't a straight path. Some days I felt free, and other days, memories would sneak up on me when I least expected them, like when I drove past my old high school, or when I heard someone talk about their parents being proud of them. I'd smile politely, but deep down, a little part of me still wished I had that. One afternoon, I got a call from Jasmine. She sounded excited, practically shouting into the phone. "Nat, you won't believe this. There's a women's business panel happening downtown next weekend. And they asked if you'd speak." I blinked. Me, speak? I was shocked. I'd done some smaller events at schools and libraries, but this one was going to be at a large venue with a real audience and press. Jasmine laughed. "Yes, you've earned this. Your story is exactly what people need to hear." I hesitated at first. Public speaking wasn't exactly my comfort zone, but something inside me said yes. Maybe it was time to share my story, not just to inspire others, but to say out loud, in front of the world, that I had made it. The day of the panel arrived quicker than I expected. I stood backstage, holding my notes, my palms slightly sweaty. I wasn't nervous about the crowd. I was nervous about being so open. Telling the truth meant reliving the pain. But it also meant owning how far I'd come. When it was my turn, I stepped out into the spotlight. The lights were warm, and the audience was quiet, waiting. I took a breath and began. I started from the beginning. About how I'd always been a quiet kid with big dreams. How I loved books, studied hard, and planned to be the first in my family to go to college. How my parents told me there was money saved for me until it was gone. I talked about the shock, the betrayal, and the helplessness of watching the dream disappear. I shared how I worked long shifts, took night classes, taught myself everything I could about business, and eventually launched Bright Pages. I told them about buying the house, the very one my parents thought I'd never afford, and how I turned my past pain into purpose by mentoring young girls just like me. When I finished, the room was silent for a second. Then came the applause. Loud, powerful, almost overwhelming. People stood up. I looked out at the sea of faces and saw women wiping their eyes, nodding, smiling. I didn't cry, but I felt my chest tighten in the best way. I had always thought of my story as something I survived, but now I saw it was something that could lift others too. After the event, people came up to me to talk. Some wanted to thank me. Others wanted advice. But one woman stood quietly at the edge of the group. I noticed her right away because she looked older, maybe in her late 50s, with kind but nervous eyes. When the crowd thinned, she stepped forward and said, "Natalie, I'm your mother's friend. She asked me to come." I froze. "She wanted you to know she saw the article about this event and that she is proud of you. She didn't think you'd want to hear it from her directly, so she sent me." I didn't know how to respond. My heart pounded. I didn't expect this. The woman continued. "She said she watches your interviews online. She cried when you bought the house, said she never realized how strong you were." I swallowed hard. I thanked her politely. But inside, my thoughts were spinning. My mother had been following my journey, quietly, silently. It didn't erase the past, but it gave me something I didn't know I needed: acknowledgement. Not an apology, not even a direct message. Just the knowledge that she saw me now. Not as the daughter who defied her, but as the woman who survived without her. That night, I sat alone on my porch, the air cool and calm. I thought about everything: my childhood, the pain, the struggle, the long nights I cried myself to sleep thinking I'd never be enough. And I thought about where I was now. My life was mine. Built by my own hands. I had created something beautiful from nothing, and no one could ever take that from me. I picked up a pen and a blank card and started writing. I didn't know what the final message would be, but I began with the words, "Dear Mom and Dad." It was time, maybe not to forget, but to let go. To leave room for whatever the future might hold. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing peace over resentment, and that's what I wanted for myself now, peace. Even if they were never truly sorry. Even if they still believed they were right to give everything to my brother. I didn't need their apology anymore. I had already found what they couldn't give me. Strength, independence, self-respect, and something even better, freedom.